800 by 600.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, awesome. Sweet. All right. So I'm Connor Emmers. I'm working on a new project that I picked up. It's a Scrum. It's taking the Scrum Agile development and basically making an application out of it that you can essentially use to monitor or develop your projects. So what is Scrum? It's basically a project management system. So like if you have a project, you might recognize the picture. It's from Silicon Valley. If you've seen Silicon Valley, you know what Scrum is already. So project has backlogs. Backlogs have features. Features have states, and states have tasks. I'll go into that in a second. So what is Scrum, the application? Scrum's a web application that makes it easy to plan out projects. Project management can be simple, and you should be able to share ideas and progress easily through your projects. So this is what I'm using. I'm using Ember.js and Rails. So Ember sits on the front end. It's a JavaScript framework, and Rails basically sends one HTML page, and then it will send JSON requests back and forth between Ember and Rails. So here's a quick demo. Unfortunately, I didn't pull all the branches that I wanted to, so you can't actually see like all the relationships. But here's like the login page for Scrum. There's a nice little sign up. Say sign up. It says email can't be blank, password can't be blank. It's pretty regular stuff. So I'll like dive into the actual application. So email. Set up a user for here. So, test. So unfortunately I didn't pull all the branches, so right now you'll basically see the states and the tasks. So here's like plan to study a project I was on, so here's like the backlog, testing and styling, archive. Ideally it'd be all on, it would all go horizontally, so you could basically move, say like user authentication from the backlog state to the testing state, and then the styling and the archive. Unfortunately, since I didn't pull all the branches, you can't really see the backlogs and how you can add new features and stuff like that. So that's kind of basic. Then you can log out, obviously. Okay. So here are like the various other libraries that I'm using. If you're like a Rails developer, you probably know some of these. So I use SAS for styling, Compass for styling, Bootstrap for styling, Sassy buttons. Those are the awesome little buttons you saw in the login. They're really cool. Ember Data actually stores the data on the front end. So what will happen is Ember Data makes the AJAX requests, and it's really easy. Instead of using a library like Marionette or Backbone, it kind of just sets it up pretty well. So on the back end, it's SQLite 3, RSpec for testing. Those are all basically testing. So if you want to check out Rails, those are great testing libraries. And here are some of the goals. So in the short term, definitely want to work on some theming because it's pretty bare as it stands. Adding multiple users to a project is a big short-term goal that I have. GitHub user authentication. So most of you have GitHub accounts, and it's very easy to sign in using GitHub instead of just making a new account and then registering. So that's definitely something I'm looking into. Creating deadlines for tasks and features. So best thing about like Ember is that Ember has binding on classes. So what happens is if like you ask for an object in Rails and it gives like a value of, you know, urgency, you can bind a CSS class to that. So you can have an element change from like yellow to red, completely dependent on what Ember gets from Rails. So it's really cool. here's some long-term goals. Adding a discussion element to the application. So basically you have like a little feed that says, this is what we're thinking about adding to our project. GitHub commits would be really cool. So saying like, here we finished this feature, this is the commit that basically shows that we did it. Public projects are currently private. Working in a Go backend, which is really cool, that I've been looking into because Rails is kind of loaded for the scope of this project. And suggestions, of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Personal learning points. This is kind of why I was originally making a talk working with front-end frameworks. They don't always make sense to use. So like in my application, it will make sense, but like the application I was working on before, which was kind of like a blog, didn't really make sense because it depends on how static your pages are. So if you have a lot of dynamic elements, it makes more sense. But if you were writing an application like Facebook, where it's basically just text, it doesn't really make sense to use front-end frameworks. So like I said, Rails is too bloated, and Ember doesn't really work really well with deeply nested routes. Any questions? Kind of went really quick, but questions, features. Acknowledgement. Thank you to the Grapefruit team because their code's pretty awesome. Helps a lot with user authentication and stuff, and usual suspects.
You should send it to the R-class account. It will work, especially the team projects which are doing. They could use something like this.
Yeah.
To show the report.
I'm bummed that I didn't fetch the branch that I was currently working on because that shows like more of the relationships and you can really get a feel of how you'd actually use it.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
You could like use it for RCOS projects maybe and then just like have them for a system so that there could be a user that can look at different projects and any of them.
Yeah, that's one of the goals, definitely.
Okay, awesome.